Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to explore why the absolute deepest, darkest parts of our own planet are still, honestly, our most terrifying unsolved mystery. You know, the ocean covers over 70% of our world, but the deep sea isn't really a place. It's more like an absence. It's this dark, intensely pressurized void where the normal rules of biology just completely break down. And before we get into it, I want to be clear. Everything we're covering today is completely documented. The audio recordings are real, the photos exist, and the reports were filed by serious scientists who have literally spent their entire careers trying to explain what they found down there.
To really wrap our heads around the scale here, think about Mount Everest. If you took the absolute tallest point on land and dropped it straight into the deepest part of the ocean, the very peak of that mountain would still be submerged over a mile underwater. It is just a staggering amount of vertical space, completely cut off from sunlight, and crazy enough, it makes up the vast majority of livable space on Earth.
We walk around all day thinking we live on Earth, but when you realize that 80% of our ocean is totally unmapped, unseen, and completely untouched by human equipment, the reality kind of sets in. We literally just live on this tiny, thin, dry crust, floating right above an incomprehensible void. We have barely even scratched the surface of what's beneath us.
Just imagine pressure so intense that if you took a normal styrofoam cup down to the Mariana Trench, it would get crushed down to the size of a thimble. And the water? It's barely above freezing. The darkness down there isn't just like turning off the lights in your bedroom. It is an absolute, crushing blackness that your brain almost registers as a physical weight. Now, I want you to imagine something actually living in that, and realize that whatever is down there made a sound so impossibly loud it traveled 2,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean.
That brings us to Section 1, Sounds in the Dark. Let's look at the 1997 anomalies. So back in August of 1997, NOAA's underwater microphones picked up this massive sound. They dubbed it the Bloop, and the acoustic profile, it perfectly matched a living creature. But here's the terrifying catch. To make a sound that loud, the math dictates that this organism would have to completely dwarf the blue whale. We're talking about something making the largest animal in human history look small. Now, NOAA later revised their stance saying, well, maybe it was just an ice quake in Antarctica, but scientists are still heavily debating that. If you actually go listen to the public audio recordings, it really doesn't feel like ice.
And crazy enough, that exact same year, Japanese researchers got footage from a deep-sea rover. For just 11 seconds, the camera caught this pale, long, undulating shape at the very edge of the light. They showed it to 3 separate marine biology departments, and nobody could identify it. But the creepiest part is actually what it did. Normal fish, they scatter when bright lights hit them, right? Not this thing. It just turned slowly, almost like it was fully aware of the camera, and deliberately glided deeper into the black. It wasn't fleeing, it was just choosing to leave. But hey, before we write off these anomalies, we really need to look at what we actually have verified down there.
Section 2. Monsters we know. Because the impossible already exists.
Look at these creatures. They completely break our understanding of biology. The anglerfish literally uses a glowing, biological fishing lure growing straight out of its skull in total darkness. Or the barrel-eye fish. It has a transparent head with tubular eyes that rotate inside a clear dome of fluid. It works exactly like a fighter jet's cockpit. And then you have the siphonophore, which looks like one giant creature, but it's actually a massive colony of organisms working as a single 150-foot body. That is way longer than a blue whale. These are verified facts in our textbooks. The deep sea already bends the rules to look like the impossible. So the big question is, if we already know these exist, what happens when we pull up something completely outside our classification system?
Let's move on to Section 3, the missing specimens, specifically the 2004 New Zealand catch.
All right, picture this. It's 2004, and a research boat off the coast of New Zealand pulls up a net from 600 meters down. Inside is this massive 4-meter-long specimen with translucent skin and internal structures that match absolutely nothing on Earth. They photograph it, log it, sample it, and send it to an institute. A preliminary report comes out confirming, yep, this tissue matches 0 known species. And then, the follow-up report never happens. Why? Because during a standard facility transfer, the specimen was administratively lost. Just vanished. A massive 4-meter unidentified organism gets totally misplaced, and anyone trying to file Freedom of Information requests, they just hit an absolute brick wall.
Section 4. The deepest void. Exploring the Hadal Zone and beyond.
Once you drop past where normal submarines can go, you hit the Hadal Zone. anywhere below 6,000 meters. And down here, the evidence gets seriously chilling. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron took a sub all the way down to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters. He sat there, totally alone, for 3 hours. And when people asked him what the most surprising part of the descent was, it wasn't the insane pressure. It wasn't the total darkness either.
It was the silence. But he didn't describe it as a peaceful quiet. He called it a profound, eerie absence, saying, not silence like quiet, silence like something that had been there a moment ago and was now gone. Think about how unsettling that is. It felt less like an empty room and more like something had just stopped making noise the exact second he showed up.
It's honestly kind of embarrassing for us as a species when you think about it. We had the entire surface of the moon mapped before we even went there. To this day, humanity has spent significantly more time walking around in space on the dusty surface of the moon than we have exploring the bottom of our own ocean. The Hadal Zone is just so impossibly vast that humans have only been down there a tiny handful of times in all of history.
And that leads us right to this terrifyingly quiet discovery from 2016. Researchers analyzing water samples from the Hadal Zone pulled up traces of complex organic compounds. But here's the kicker. The biological material they found didn't just belong to some weird new species of fish. It was structurally unlike absolutely anything in our known, cataloged biological record. The lead researcher basically had to state on record that it suggested biological activity from an origin we don't understand. But did you hear about it? Probably not, because the paper just got a modest academic nod and was quietly filed away.
So let's put the pieces together here. Every single piece of evidence in this explainer is a documented fact. Scientists lowered cameras and literally found creatures with transparent skulls and bodies made of light. We recorded acoustic sounds so massive they'd require a biological source the size of a city block. We pulled a 4-meter anomaly onto a boat only to magically lose it. And we found structural biology that entirely defies life on Earth as we know it. These are all verifiable facts, and yet they remain completely and utterly unexplained.
So what you really need to take away from this is a sense of perspective. The ocean is ancient. The next time you're standing on the beach, looking out past where the water gets dark, remember that the shelf drops off into a pitch-black void. Life down there has been evolving in total, absolute isolation from the surface world. Whatever is down there has had 200 million years to adapt, to evolve, and to learn exactly how to wait. Which leaves us with one incredibly terrifying question. What happens when it finally decides it's done waiting?